Hi, I'm Michael Green, and I'm one of the PMs on Azure Guest Configuration. Today I wanted to walk you through one of the new quick starts that we've recently released as a sample that will help you to incorporate the Azure Windows baseline into your custom virtual machine images. I'm going to start off by looking in Azure Security Center. This is one of the many places where Azure Guest Configuration is showing integration. We want this to be a transferable skill set that you can use in all different features and capabilities across Azure. So for focusing in on the Azure Windows baseline, that policy definition has been added to the Azure Security Center initiative that populates these recommendations. So if I look under Remediate Security Configurations, I'll see vulnerabilities in Windows machines should be remediated. And this new one that's under Preview shows in parentheses powered by Guest Configuration. And that's the one that's using the Guest Configuration extension. You can also go through the results in Resource Graph and see the results in Activity Log. Like, we're really integrating this as an Azure native capability. What if I want to make that machine compliant? What are my options of doing that? So that is one of the questions we recently tried to answer and make much easier. What we found, and just switching over to PowerPoint for a second. By the way, I don't know what these icons mean. PowerPoint recommended them, so I just went with it. Number one, we can audit. So for the Azure Windows baseline, we can go do sort of a read-only operations, a way to think about it, where we just read what's the status of all of these 199 settings across those machines and report the compliance back. Then if you want to move over to enforcement, one option is going to be to deploy the machine and in that template include a reference to the Azure Windows baseline. That way the machine gets deployed and then it gets configured. And in many cases, you might be deploying a machine as part of a project and you just want to build secure and then put your code on it and then release that into production later. And that might be a great option because then you can really just take machines right out of the marketplace, or a custom image that you've built and just assign the configuration to it as part of your deployment. Another option would be to actually create secure custom images, meaning you've taken an image from the marketplace and run it through Azure Image Builder so that it's fully patched, and then take something like the Azure Windows baseline as a reference for a secure configuration and apply that as part of the custom image creation process. So then when that machine boots, again, fully patched, and it would have the Azure Secure Baseline already applied at the point that it's booting up. Well, let's take a look at how we would do some of those things. So first of all, you'll see in the documentation, I just wanted to touch on this, how to create guest configuration assignments using templates. This is part of the Azure policy documentation. If you look under How to Guest Configuration, you'll find it in the table of contents there. And here you'll see a reference using ARM templates, using Bicep, using Terraform. Like, how would I incorporate that Windows baseline into my actual machine deployment? And then even how would I customize it? Like, maybe instead of minimum password length for local accounts being 14, I want to make it 16. You can customize that as part of your deployment. That information's here. What if you were interested in option number 3? So you actually wanted to incorporate the baseline into a custom image. Go look for Azure Quick Start templates. These are available in GitHub, but you'll also find them under azure.microsoft.com/resources/templates. Just type in this search box right here the word image, and you'll see them come right up. Azure Image Builder with Azure Windows Baseline. Let's take a closer look at that. So really what this is doing is saying, let's use a service in Azure so that we take an image from the marketplace and then run it through a process defined by a template that says, go do a bunch of custom tasks to it, and then generalize that image and make it available in a private shared image gallery just for my tenant. And then I can control, who has access to it and that sort of thing. So you can find out more information and take a look at the code behind it if you browse on GitHub. But let's just hit deploy on Azure and take a look at what this experience is like. This is going to look like any other deployment that you would trigger from the Azure portal by going through the Azure Marketplace, but it's going to have all these values already filled in. I'm just going to pick a resource group, and you can see I've got a bunch here pre-staged that kind of move things along throughout this demo. All these values are already filled in, so you don't have to change anything. If I just hit review and create, you'll see it's validating that the template looks good. I can click create, and it's going to go run that deployment. Now I'm going to fast forward. What would happen if we just move through time and let that deployment finish? This is what we'll end up with. So you can see I've got an image gallery. There's an identity associated there so that it has access to take these images and put them in storage accounts, things like that. You can also see I've got a definition that provides information about what I want to pull from the marketplace to run through the customization process, and then the template, which actually defines how do I want to customize this machine. Finally, the thing that you're going to care about the most is a new version of a custom image has been put into this resource group and is now available. Great. So this is the result of, again, deploying that quick start. If I go in here and look at my options, there's things that I can modify about it. And this is defined in the template too, but like, where do I want this image to be available in what Azure regions? So if I'm planning to do a bunch of machine deployments, I can stage the image closest to where I'm deploying my machines. If I go look at properties, I can, oh, this is grayed out because I've got a mask on it, but I can look for the resource ID that would give me the actual API path to this machine. But if I click on overview, you can see I can actually create VM right from here. So this is just like if I'm deploying a machine from the marketplace, except for under image, it's going to use that custom image that was created. I can also just do this directly in something like Bicep. So now I'm going to switch over to VS Code, and you can see if I scroll very quickly through this Bicep template, it's creating a network, it's going to create a security group, create a public IP address. Oh, here we go, create a virtual machine. And under image reference, instead of saying like what publisher and what SKU and that sort of thing, it's just saying, here's the resource ID for the ID field of that image version, just that custom image that was created. And just to close, before I switch back to the portal, if I scroll down a little further, you can also see in this deployment template, and I'll work on getting this into the Azure Quick Starts gallery as well, but I'm just going to include the virtual machine extension for Azure Guest Configuration, and I'm going to go ahead and assign the baseline even though it's part of the image. Now, why would I do that? Because that will allow me to then go audit, which is going to happen anyway because of Security Center, what's going on with this machine. And then if I want to, if the machine drifts in the future and becomes not compliant, I could just rerun this template and it would trigger inside that machine, putting it back into a compliant state. Or I could change this to apply an autocorrect and tell it to just do continuous remediation. So every 15 minutes, if the machine has drifted, it's just going to put it back. All of that's in the documentation. We can have another video that goes into those details. So if I take a look at this resource group, this would be the result of running that Bicep template that we just looked at. This is deployed a compliant machine. I've called it 2019 hardened. The idea is that it's fully patched and the Azure Windows baseline is already applied to it at the time that it boots. This ran through a process where those operations happened and then sysprep ran, it generalized the machine, put it into your shared image gallery. We did thoroughly test that sysprepping the machine doesn't actually reset any of the settings that are part of the Azure Secure Baseline. So this actually works out really well. This next resource group, as like a control in the experiment, I just took Server 2019 from the gallery and deployed it. So let's take a look at the difference between these two. Normally, if you wanted to get to this page, just in the Azure portal in this top box, just type guest assignment and you'll see all kinds of things pop up here. I've just typed base into this search field so I could get the two baselines showing up for the two machines that I have. So this was that first one we looked at that was deployed from an image that already had the baseline included in it. And everything's compliant, 199 settings. And if you scroll through this, you'll see it's mostly local security policy, which is still the right approach if you're looking at hardening a Windows Server image. And then if I go look at the other one, you'll find that from like that machine image coming from the marketplace with no modifications, about 86 settings are actually not compliant with the Azure Secure Baseline. And again, your options to make it secure would be to deploy the baseline along as part of your template, or use this quick start and go produce images that already have it baked in. So the last thing, if I go in and look at Security Center again, and we click into this thing that kind of started this conversation, you'll see this will provide additional level of detail about those settings. So if I scroll in, out of those 86 settings in that machine, I could actually go in and understand more information about what does it mean that I'm not digitally signing communications for the network servers, a full explanation, details about if that's a vulnerability, what risk might be exposed. And then, here's the proof. If I click affected resources, there's the machine that's actually affected. That was the one from the marketplace with no changes, healthy resources. You can see one of them is that Server 2019 hardened machine that I deployed as part of that bicep template that was just referencing that pre-built image. So that's really it. I hope that this has been valuable and you can take a look at it. Again, I would just start by searching for Azure Quick Start templates, and then within that page, look for the Azure Image Builder Quick Start template. I hope this makes your journey towards building more secure application environments a bit easier. Thank you very much.